Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach Dawn Platt for an all-new episode.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Dawn Platt, and thank you for joining me on the podcast one more time to talk about all things dementia. I am getting ready to start a series that I thought might be kind of interesting for you. I normally don't do too many series, but today we're going to talk about navigating dementia, living well and thriving. That's going to be our topic. But there are a number of things that I want to discuss in this series. What does living well with dementia mean? Should you remind someone that they have dementia? Information and guidance for living well with dementia, especially in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And then another topic in this series that we're going to cover is how important is getting a diagnosis. We've talked about that a few times, but generally, I want to get into it deeper because it constantly comes up. It's something that people bring up, and I happen to think it's really important, but we'll get into that topic. So let's get started today, navigating dementia and living well and thriving. So first off, I want to just start with an introduction. And I told you before that I create the podcast in and around interesting questions that people ask me throughout the course of dementia coaching or working with families in my career as a senior living professional who oversees many memory care communities throughout the United States. And really, it is just my way of trying to find things that I feel like are interesting and impactful for you. I do have a virtual support group that I offer every other month, and you can find that located on our resource page if you're interested in joining me in that. And I like to keep it intimate. I like people to ask questions that are relevant to them and their situation wherever they are in the dementia journey. But today, let's talk about the introduction to living well with dementia. So, embracing positivity despite the diagnosis. Individuals with dementia can approach life with positivity and resilience. I've seen it happen. It can happen. And we all know people like that. It's possible. But finding joy and purpose in everyday moments are really the strength of what I see when I meet those people or when I talk to those people, is they use that as their way to overcome when life gives them lemons and they make lemonade. So this is possible. Using a personalized approach, in other words, living well with dementia, is highly individualized, just as our lives are and the choices that we make, but recognizing that each person's experience is unique and requires tailored strategies to support their well-being. We're individuals here. Even when we get a diagnosis, doesn't matter what the diagnosis might be, we're going to approach it as individuals. We're all going to have our own ways that we deal with something, and it's no different with dementia. And focusing on quality of life rather than focusing solely on managing systems. Oftentimes when we talk about dementia, there are a couple of things that come to mind. People automatically think, oh, it's the end, or I'm going to have every symptom that I've heard about or that my friend's mother had, whatever the case might be. And that absolutely isn't true. And then the other thing is that people assume that people lose their intelligence or who they are, and to some degree, facilitating intelligence or change in personality does happen. But certainly, rather than focusing solely on managing symptoms, we want to live well with dementia, emphasizing the maximum quality of life that we can live. We want to promote independence, maintain social connections, and foster as much as possible their or our emotional well-being. And this is true for the individual who's been diagnosed and their family member. Listen, family members and caregivers go through this. It takes part of them, not only part of the person who is suffering with dementia, but it takes part of the family, of the caregivers. It takes away something that they love. And so this is really important as we go through this journey to have these kind of discussions. What does living well with dementia mean? I think about some of the people that I have met over this journey. I remember those who have lived well and died well. And I think that the reason that I remember them so much is they have impacted my life. Their attitude, their decisions, and the way that they have walked this journey have been meaningful and impactful on me as a person. We're going to meet people who are able to do that well, and then others that maybe not so much. But let's just talk about a scenario. So, meet Sarah, a vibrant woman in her late 70s, was diagnosed with dementia 3 years ago. And despite the diagnosis, Sarah approaches life with a positive sense about her life, with positivity. Each morning, Sarah takes calm walks in the park, connecting with neighbors along the way. Sarah finds solace in painting, spending hours in her studio expressing herself through art. With minor adjustments at her home, like labeling drawers, using sticky notes, installing handrails, Sarah has been able to maintain her independence. Through Sarah's journey, we see that living well with dementia is about finding joy and purpose in everyday moments, despite the challenges that lie ahead. I love that. I meet people like that all the time. And I encourage that whether you have dementia or whether you don't, life deals you some hard blows. And so it's really about a mindset. The decisions that we make, the priorities that we place on life and family and friends that really make the difference and the lasting difference when it actually comes to an end. So let's just talk here about James. James is a retired teacher who was diagnosed with dementia 2 years ago. And despite the challenges that he faces, James has remained determined to live life to its fullest. And I've talked about this in the past. There's a Ironman contestant out there, someone that's consistently run the Ironman that was diagnosed. I really need to get that guy on because talking about living his best life, what a testament, what an inspiring story. But James, every week, he volunteers at the local library where he helps children with their reading skills. Despite his memory lapsings, James' love for teaching shines through as he patiently encourages and supports each child. In his free time, James enjoys gardening in his backyard, finding peace and purpose amidst the blooming flowers and lush greenery in his garden and in his yard. Tending to his garden brings him a sense of accomplishment and joy, reminding him of the beauty of life beyond his diagnosis. James' resilience and positive attitude inspire those around him, really inspire all of us, proving that with the right support and mindset, it is possible to find fulfillment and happiness despite living with dementia. These scenarios just remind us it is possible and that it is about a mindset and doing the best that we can with what we have to work with. So, what is the importance of focusing on quality of life despite a diagnosis of dementia? Well, let's emphasize and take a look at the importance of individuality here. I've alluded to that multiple times, discussed it just earlier, but we're all individuals. We're all individuals here. Each one of us has our own unique preferences, our own strengths, and our limitations, frankly. And what works for one person may not work for another. But it's important to understand that utilizing person centered care and individualized approaches to support, really focusing on understanding each person's background, interests, and values will provide the best outcome. We all come from a different culture, ethnicity, religious values, maybe states or nations that we come from. It's really important to understand that these factors can come into play and we are individuals. But living well with dementia is highly individualized concept as it should be. Each person's experience of dementia is very unique and may require different approaches for living well. We can have the same diagnosis, we can even be in the same stage, but there are a lot of other factors, external and environmental factors that we're going to talk about that are going to influence that diagnosis and our quality of life in general. Let's talk a little bit about maintaining independence and autonomy, because I think this is really important. I've seen over and over again families want to do things immediately for someone who has the diagnosis as if now that they know that they have it, they aren't capable anymore. That's just not true. They still maintain a lot of independence and probably will for some time in this dementia journey. And so we need to recognize that. But let's explore some ways to promote independence and autonomy for individuals with dementia, and the importance of empowering individuals to make choices on their own and participate in the decision-making processes. I've heard my own mother say, I'm not a child. You don't need to make all the decisions for me. And we certainly don't want to assume that they can't make certain decisions. Obviously, we want to set some boundaries. But I think that one of the things that people are fearful of is loss of control and not being able to make their own decisions. It's really important to listen and to know when to step in and when to allow them to make their own decisions. Utilizing strategies such as assistive technologies, implementing memory aids, or simplifying tasks to help individuals with dementia maintain independence in daily activities may prove helpful. Obviously, you want to explore these opportunities so that they have the supportive tools and technology that they need when they need it. And I think that that's going to be very important. There can be a balance between promoting independence and ensuring safety. And I have a whole podcast on safety. We're going to talk a little bit about it here. That's a whole other topic. But acknowledging that some level of assistance may be necessary while still empowering individuals to make choices and maintain control over their own lives. So there may be some days or some hours of the day that you will need to assist your loved one. And then other times that they're really sharp and may not need it. And you need to be able to kind of determine the difference between those times and allow that to happen as long as it can happen. That's really important. Let's create supportive environments for the individual with dementia. So let's talk about the significance of creating supportive environments that accommodate needs and having a supportive environment, whether it's in a living space, whether it's access to regular nutritious meals or medication management, as well as access to socialization opportunities, can make a difference in the people's lives and the journey when they have dementia. Listen, people who have supportive environment, whether it be their living accommodation or friends and family, or making sure that they are well hydrated, get exercise, get social stimulation, nutritious meals, really makes all the difference in the world. And being in a senior living environment, I can tell you oftentimes I see improvement in individuals who move into an assisted living or a memory care environment because they are getting the support they need. They're getting the medications they need. They're getting hot meals and they're getting nutritious meals and opportunities to be active and to socialize. Really, it's a very, very important part of the dementia journey. Modifications to the physical environment can foster a sense of safety and security for those who have dementia and their caregiver. This modification can be anywhere from installing grab bars to making sure that there are not a lot of throw rugs that people can trip over, not a lot of steps that they have to navigate, a number of things that we want to look at in the physical environment. And some of the modifications will be to the home environment, such as installing grab bars, improving the lighting, or decluttering spaces to reduce confusion and enhance safety for the individuals with dementia. These things all become important. And if you're not a person or a caregiver who knows and understands that, employ a professional such as an occupational therapist who can really evaluate home safety or driving safety or any of those types of things. That is going to be very helpful to the individual. The last thing you need to do is to have the home environment be unsafe or be an obstacle to the individual's processing skills. You want to make sure that everything is in place, it's convenient, it's modified for their use. Creating environments that promote comfort, familiarity, and sensory stimulation, considering factors, take them into play, such as color contrast, signage, access to nature can be positive ways to create a supportive environment. So we've talked about visual deficits that can come with dementia and understanding that things that are all white or all black are going to appear differently to the individual with dementia. Outside cueing or visual cueing through signage so that they can determine where they are, what something is used for, is really important, as well as access to outdoor spaces, fresh air, are positive ways to create a supportive environment. Access to resources and support is another way that we've talked about utilizing on navigating the dementia journey. So I cannot stress enough the importance of accessing resources and support networks for both individuals with dementia and their caregivers and families. Ask your physician, maybe your local hospital, family, and friends about what's available in your local market, what local support services they might know about, such as a dementia-friendly community programs, adult daycare, support groups for the individual or the family, or even respite care options. What are the options that may be available? And of course, with that, there are some barriers to accessing support. And generally, those barriers are just really lack of awareness. You may not have had any reason to know about these programs or these support because you've never walked the dementia journey before, but others have. And they're able to share with you some of the resources that they have accessed. Financial constraints can be another barrier, or perhaps geographical isolation or location. Maybe there are not a lot of resources in your small town, or you live in a rural area as compared to a metropolitan area. Explore ways to overcome these barriers through outreach efforts and collaboration with community partners, certainly with your physician and your local hospital. So the role of community organizations, support groups, and healthcare professionals in providing this assistance and guidance can really be invaluable on the dementia journey, even if you don't currently need it. I've always said, and I promote, take a look at the options well in advance. So when you have the opportunity or the need presents itself, you already know what the options are. It doesn't hurt to do the investigation, to gather the information. You don't have to use it, but the last thing you want to do is need it and then have to go through that process at the time. The other topic I want to talk about in navigating the dementia journey and living well is promoting mental and emotional well-being. This is really important. The importance of meaningful engagement and social interaction in maintaining cognitive function and emotional resilience is a critical step for those with dementia. It really is going to make a difference for you and your loved one. Activities that will tap into the individual's interest and past experiences help preserve cognitive reserve and function and support them in quality of life. In the long goodbye, we lose people by little bits and pieces. Tapping into these things that are going to keep these activities alive for them is going to really be very beneficial when it comes to quality of life. Some practical strategies for promoting mental and emotional well being for individuals living with dementia. So, activities such as reminiscent therapy, music, or art therapy, these things promote cognitive stimulation and emotional expression. Activities that stimulate cognitive function also includes social engagement and emotional connections. Stay close with the family. Be involved in family birthday parties, family outings as much as possible. Social engagement with your neighbors, with old friends. These things are going to be really important. There's going to come a time when you're going to have to decide how much of that you can still do. But as long as you can navigate some of it, I highly encourage it because it will promote the person's sense of well being. Let's talk about navigating and addressing the stigma and the misconception behind dementia. I cannot tell you how many people have a hard time with this point on the dementia journey, but thank God that many famous people and their families who have been diagnosed with dementia are now sharing their diagnosis and shedding light on the condition, educating the general public to its impact. So we have seen everyone from Glenn Campbell, Robin Williams, and now Bruce Willis, others that are coming out. This is really shedding light on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, and that this happens to real people. So I think that that's really going to help with the stigma that we encounter with friends and family and even neighbors. It's out of ignorance. They don't understand what's happening. And so many you'll lose contact with. But if you decide to share it, this private moment with them, it can be very beneficial to you and to others, but it's a personal choice. If you share it, when you decide to share it, how you decide to share it, and to whom you decide to share it with. These are all personal choices that are yours to make. But I think as we continue to make people aware, the podcast was created for awareness. I think that we're going to see a difference in this misconception and the stigma that many families and individuals face. So there are many strategies for raising awareness that you can participate in. There are challenging stereotypes and promoting a more inclusive and supportive attitude towards people living with dementia, both in the community and broader society, really is our goal because dementia is everywhere. It is one of the fastest growing conditions and diseases that we face internationally, but certainly here in this nation. We want to make sure that we're part of that discussion. We're the person who has an ear when a friend knows you've gone through it and now they're calling you to ask about your experience. Be that person that is influencing what others know by sharing your own experiences if you can and if you choose to do that. Encouraging meaningful connections is another way to ensure that someone on the dementia journey is living life well. I cannot stress enough the importance of maintaining meaningful connections with family, friends, and community. I try and do this even on my own, have tried to do it throughout my mom's journey. Maintaining those connections, those things that bring them and you joy, are really going to make a difference in staying connected with the individual. The benefits of social activities such as intergenerational programs, volunteer opportunities, or group outings for individuals with dementia and their caregivers are overwhelmingly positive. And I find throughout my coaching career that families who stay active and to keep the person as active, including them, not excluding them, really see a much more positive outcome in quality of life for their loved one. There's several ways to facilitate social connections and combat social isolation, which is a real thing. It's very prevalent. We see it a lot. We see it in our neighbors. We see it with our friends, including technology, the use of technology for virtual interactions. Certainly, someone would need to facilitate them for that, but it's a wonderful way to stay connected. Community-based events and support groups tailored to specific interests or cultural backgrounds is a great way to keep them connected to something that's meaningful in their life. Fostering social connections and reducing feelings of isolation are only a few of the many benefits of staying connected. Staying connected is the one thing I will say in my own mother's journey was grounding for her. She never forgot who I was. She never forgot. She might misplace a name or not be able to name her great grandchild, but she was connected. She was involved, and it meant so much to her. I remember our last family vacation, which was not that many weeks before she passed away. It was almost miraculous how she was able to navigate socially with the family during our vacation time and how much it meant to her. She exhibited this independence that she had not had in months. It was just really very powerful to see. And I just can't encourage you enough to try and facilitate that if at all possible. Now, obviously, if that's negative and it doesn't turn positive, it's something you're not going to want to do. But with the right support, I think that it can be done. And it will be very, very beneficial for them to have the many benefits of staying connected, especially to family, but also to friends and maybe even to their church. It's going to be very important for them. Adapting to changing needs. This is really critical in navigating the dementia journey and living well because it comes in stages, in waves, and there are several stages that you may encounter during the time and new things that you may encounter. So adapting to changing needs is going to be important. Being flexible during this dementia journey is going to be beneficial for you and your loved one. Let me acknowledge that living well with dementia is an evolving process that may require adapting to changing needs over time. You got to stay flexible. Not everything is going to work. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Be flexible. Do the things that are beneficial to you and your loved one. So it may require reaching out and getting professional support and guidance, being part of a support network, hiring a professional that can come in and give you some advice and some options. This is going to be really important to the success of you and your loved one on this journey. Individuals and caregivers who have successfully adapted to the progression of dementia by adjusting routines, accessing additional support service when needed, or modifying the living environment simply do better when it comes to quality of life. Over and over again, they just simply do better. I've seen it in hundreds and hundreds of families. Just the outcomes are better. They're so glad they made the decisions that they made. When I look back, the benefits of making those decisions are good ones. And I don't regret those decisions that I've advised people to make or that I've made myself for my own loved one. Remember to stay flexible. This is really important and resilient in navigating challenges associated with this disease. Make personal decisions and do what is best for you and your loved one. I said it over and over. I'll continue to say it. All things are good, but all things are not good for you and your loved one. Make decisions that are going to benefit you. I hope that today's topic in this series is going to be very beneficial for you navigating dementia, living well and thriving. I think it's possible. It's very possible for us to be able to do that. Let me just give you some closing thoughts today as we end the podcast. And let me leave you today with some words of encouragement and empowerment to remember that living well with dementia is possible. with the right support and the right resources. It is significant to embrace a holistic approach to dementia care when that care prioritizes dignity, respect, and quality of life for the individual living with the condition and for their families. I encourage you to continue seeking information, advocating for change that can foster a more inclusive and supportive society for all. You are not alone in this. We're with you here at the podcast. You have choices. Do what is best for you and for yours. Until next time, this is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.